That, in case you're wondering, is a marimba. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today. Later on, I'll tell you what the marimba has to do with rediscovering the magic of words. But right now, I want to focus on the marimba. I want to tell you three things about it. First of all, it's an instrument, a musical instrument. Musical instruments are built to be used together, sound together in symphony. They come in different families. This fits into the percussion family. And percussion instruments come in two different types. There's pitched instruments. The marimba is a pitched instrument. I can play a tune on it. And I can produce different sound qualities from it. The second thing I want to tell you about the marimba is that it's a human invention. This is a concert marimba. Its roots lie in folk music and instruments made in Africa. But this is the invention of a Japanese percussionist called Keiko Abe, who in the 1980s was frustrated. She had an inner vision of what she wanted to achieve that she couldn't achieve with the instrument she was playing. So in collaboration with Yamaha in Japan, she developed this. This magnificent instrument is the combination of the rational part of the human brain, things like the science of acoustics, mechanics, design come into it, and the other part of the human brain, the more intuitive part that deals with music, harmony, insight, vision. The third thing I want to tell you about the marimba is that the marimba by itself is just an instrument with a lot of potential, but without a performer to bring it to life, that potential is unfulfilled. And marimba players, well, they don't have it that easy. No instrumentalist has it that easy. Instrumentalists have to develop the technique to find a way to freely express that notion, that idea of music that they have inside them, so that their body, their limitations of technique don't get in the way. Now, think of organists. Organists can't travel around the world with their instrument. They have to go wherever they can find an organ to play on. Pianists have it somewhat easier. At the top of the game, they can carry their instrument around with them. But most can go to a concert hall and play a concert performance with the piano in there. Marimba players find it very difficult because few of them have the ability to carry their instrument around with them. Few concert halls have marimbas to play on. So we're very grateful to the TEDx team for facilitating the presence of this instrument here today. Thank you. What does this marimba have to do with rediscovering the magic of words? Well, like the marimba, words are instruments. Words are human inventions. And words depend on people bringing them to life. What do I mean by words being instruments? Well, just like musical instruments, they're grouped into families. Two main families, in fact. I'll come back to that in a minute. In the first family are words like nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs. In the second family, words like prepositions or conjunctions. And just like instruments, they can be played in different ways. Marimba. Marimba? Marimba! Same word. Three very different intentions. Words are human inventions. Now, I don't know who invented the first word, who invented the first language, I don't know when, but I do know that words are being invented all the time. My daughter, who's 15, frequently uses the word fandom. And her fandoms have battles with other fandoms, and she knows exactly what that means. When I was growing up, I didn't have fandoms, there were fan groups or fan clubs. But words depend on people to bring them to life. And it's not so much the words that come to life. Just as the marimba can't bring notes to life. For notes are not music, just as words are not meaning. How can we bring words to life? Well, in the 1930s, Dorothy Sayers wrote an essay about the liberal arts called The Lost Tools of Learning. And one of the things she looked at was the integrated approach to grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Now, this is the air I breathe, the sea I swim in, the integrated approach to the liberal arts. I just want to give you an insight into what that means from the point of view of words. Remember I told you words fit into two families? It's time to rediscover those families. The first family is the family of categorematic words. The second family is syncategorematic words. I'll unpack that for you in a minute. The category bit relates to something called Aristotle's 10 categories of being. I like to think of Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, way before Christ, sitting in an olive grove in his native Greece, looking at an olive tree or maybe an amphora of wine, and thinking, how many ways can I think about that object? Not how many ways can I describe it, but how many ways is my brain hardwired to think about an object differently? He came up with 10 different ways. The first, he called substance. Substance, matter, the goo the universe is made of that is formed into different things. What is this thing I'm looking at? Well, let's take the marimba as an example. It's a marimba. What are its qualities? Well, anything that is part of it that you can't take away from it. Its color, its shape, for instance. Its quantity, anything you can count or measure. That's a totally different way of thinking about something. It has a particular height, particular width, a particular depth. I can count the number of keys, the number of tubes. It also has connections, relationships. Has a connection to its inventor, to its manufacturer, to its retailer, to its owner. It has a particular position in space. It's right here and right now. That's its position in time. It is in a position itself. It's standing upright. It's not on its side. It's not upside down. And at the moment, it has 4 mallets on it. Those are things that are associated with it, but can be removed. If it were Christmas time and it was a Christmas present, it might have a big red bow around it. That would be something it had, not part of it, but belonging to it at that time and place. Action, or active, if it were being played, it would be sounding. That's what it would be doing. And passive or passion, what is being done to it or what it's feeling, it would be receiving the action of a player. Those are the 10 ways our brain is hardwired to look at the world, make sense of it. There they are. Now, categorematic words can easily fit into those 10 categories of being. You can look at the marimba in any of those 10 ways. Where does and fit in? How do you define and? You might say, oh, and is about relationship. Well, yes, but to be related to something, it has to have substance. What's the substance of and? I can point to the marimba. I can't point to an and. I can't find and under a carpet anywhere. And yet we use the word all the time. In the liberal arts tradition, a tradition that people were educated in right up to the 18th, 19th centuries, there was a distinction between catagrammatic and syncatagrammatic words, and they knew very well that syncatagrammatic words were words that opened up a vista into a way of thinking we have that is hardwired within us, that is totally different from the way we look at material objects. This is instinctive, it's part of us. It used to be taught, it used to be brought into our consciousness. It's not anymore. Well, it is in certain rare places where they do teach the liberal arts. It's very rare to find things like logic, grammar, and rhetoric taught in an integrated way. Let me give you an example. It's an example that comes from Sister Miriam Joseph's book, The Trivium. A great book to get if you're interested in pursuing this. The planet Pluto, before it was discovered, was a logical entity. It became a logical entity when it was discovered. When it was named, it became a grammatical entity. And when it was talked about, it became a rhetorical entity. You cannot dissociate the three things. They are, by definition, integrated. They are an integrated tool that is part and parcel of how we look at the universe, how we analyze it. Bringing that into our consciousness can really help us think clearly. I've used it with children to help them spin stories. If they define a character using those 10 categories of being, suddenly their imaginations light up. A story comes out spontaneously. It's very useful when working with adults to take things like nationality and analyze the difference between, well, is nationality a quality or is it having? A whole wide discussion about culture, nationality, and fundamentalism can come out of that. I'll leave you to think about that. But for now, I'd like to conclude by leaving you with a few thoughts. When we fail to connect to the meaning behind words, we risk losing our purpose in life. We risk losing our purpose as human beings. We risk disharmony, disconnectedness, discord. But I've found that working in the liberal arts tradition, in this integrated way, what Sister Miriam Joseph says actually is true. She says the liberal arts work on people like an intransitive verb. An intransitive verb is one where the action starts and stops in the subject. Like a river flows, a rose blooms, a person blossoms. When I use words in that way, I feel more fulfilled. I feel more at harmony with the universe. I feel more in touch with my purpose in life. There's only one course of action that makes sense. At home, at work, at school, in society at large, it's time to reconnect to the richness of the meaning behind words. I've sought to bring you to the very edge of the boundary where words and meaning meet. Now, it's time to step over that boundary. It's time to move the marimba to center stage. I'd like you to welcome to the stage a young musician, a very talented young musician. the musician to whom this instrument belongs. He's going to play you a piece by Keiko Abe, the person behind the invention of this concert marimba, a piece called Michi, which is part composed and part improvised. It's going to be created spontaneously, right here, right now, in response to your mood, the mood we're creating in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to welcome to the stage Aristel Skrbic.